Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. The next 10 minutes are inspired by love and a fight. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the engine. Man, when you're in love, it's love. It's love. There's nothing you can really do about it. When you're in love, you love someone, you are all into them, you want to make them breakfast, lunch, dinner, you want to make them laugh, you want to do things with them, you want to spend your time with the person you're in love with. That's why it's love. I remember when my wife and I were younger, we were in our 20s, and we would do the stupidest stuff together, and we couldn't help it. Like, we loved it. Every second of it. We had in her small apartment, I moved into her apartment. It was like a 1-bedroom. And she had this really small spot, but I had a 100-gallon fish tank. I was really into fish at the time, and so when I moved in, I was like, well, what about our fish tank? You know, our fish tank. She says, well, we'll bring it, just bring it in. So we schlepped this 5-foot-long fish tank up these stairs. She lived on the second floor. And we set it up. And then we decided, like, you know what? I've always done these really extreme kind of fish tanks. Why don't we do like a goldfish tank? And she was like, yeah. So we go get these fancy goldfish, you know, the ones with giant cheeks and like funny heads and huge eyeballs, and go to the goldfish store and buy like 20 of them and put them in. And I was like, you know what I've always wanted to do? I always wanted a goldfish tank that had like a castle on it. The castle would be awesome. She was like, let's do it. Awesome. So we go, somehow we like find some place. It's like Toys R Us or something. We find some place that has these Lego sets. And so I buy this Lego castle. It had to cost me like $120. It was huge, this big, huge castle. And I built it. I spent all day building it. She bought this submarine set that had a submarine diver and the submarine and this little submersible robot thing. It was awesome. Built this stuff, and then we spent all evening trying to figure out how to sink the Legos. Because mind you, if you think about a Lego construction piece, it's just all little pockets of air inside plastic. Right? So there's no way for the water to get in there. So we were thinking like, maybe if we just individually take the pieces apart and fill them with water, well, that's a losing strategy. So it's like, well, can't I just grab the bottom pieces and you know, essentially we had dental floss. Use dental floss to dental floss the bottom pieces to some rock or something. Well, that's fine. The bottom pieces will sink with the rock, but the top pieces will float off. So after hours of doing this, we figured out a way to sink it. So what we did is I had this crushed coral. So what we did is we took the crushed coral and we sprinkled it on the top of the castle. It was white, so it made it look like this snow-capped kind of castle. And we also took dental floss and had these big glass panes that were supposed to be at the top of the tank, but they fit inside pretty well. So what I did is I dental flossed portions of the castle down to the glass because glass sank. So the glass pulled the castle down initially, and then we just poured this coral all over the top. So at the end of it, there was this Lego castle sitting at the bottom of this goldfish tank, and it looked awesome. It was the best. And the goldfish would swim in and out. They were these fat little goldfish. It was pretty awesome. It was a great time. It's one of those things where I think back on it, it's like, yeah, how could anybody not have a good time doing that? And it's clear, right? It's clear when you're in love, you're in love. You love being there. You love doing those things. But there was this really odd thing that a friend of mine said when I was like 18, 19. This guy, Rob Curran, who was a freshman in college, and he would joke about how you can't be friends with somebody till you fight him. He grew up in Seattle, and he had this best friend that he would harass about fighting. He's like, come on, bro, fight me. And the guy was like, Rob, I'm not going to fight you. And he'd like hit his arm and stuff. He's like, come on, fight me. And Rob was not a fighter. I think he's an attorney now. So, fighter mentally, physically, not so much. But he would joke about that. And the film Fight Club had come out when I was in high school. It was a tremendous film. And, people were really curious about the nature of these relationships that were centered around fighting, centered around conflict, centered around this kind of bond you have when you fight like your best friend. And it's a weird thing because my friends now, of which I have some, I'm not somebody who collects a lot of friends, but I have friends. And my friends now, we mean the world to each other. And it's clear, I have no problem saying I love you to my friends. And these are 50-year-old males. I do. I love them. I do. And it's not that I just love hanging out with them. And this is a weird thing because I've been mulling this over. It's like, why? I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and, I got cauliflower ear. I've been doing it for well over a decade. It's what I do with my life. It's something I'm really good at, which I really appreciate. Everybody deserves to have something they're good at. But I've been wondering a lot about why during COVID, when we're on lockdown, why can't we just hang out in one of the guys' front yards? Hang out. Because we can't do jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is wrestling, right? Like, you're not going to go wrestle people when the Rona's flying around. But why can't we just go hang out and, relax and enjoy each other's company and have that be the same thing? And as I've been thinking about this, I thought back to the times that I had with my wife when we were younger. Because even in the midst of the best times with my wife, when we were younger, before we had ever gotten in a fight, I almost didn't trust the relationship. And I know that sounds very odd, but when you're in love, you're in love. There's no disputing that, and there's no arguing. There's no trying to explain that or justify it. It's like, look, I love this woman. I'm in love with her. Of course I want to hang out with her. But what happens when you're not getting along, right? Like, what happens when you actually get in a fight? And it's not so easy to hang out with somebody. The relationship that you think you have is not going to be the same as a relationship before and after the fight. And that's the thing that I think people don't realize, that they think relationships are good when they're good. And yeah, fine, building Legos and sinking them and having a good time like that, that's all well and fine. But the relationship that you have post-fight, like a serious fight, a serious conflict, the relationship you have after that is going to be distinctly different than the one you had beforehand, for better or for worse. If you have a serious fight and you guys just implode and that was it, what was that relationship? That was a relationship based on mutual enjoyment and just, hey, it's like I go to the movie until I don't like the movie and then I leave. That's essentially it. And how could you really trust that, ever? And I think that's why my friends and I can't just hang out in the front yard with each other and, drink a beer or something and just see each other. We can, and it's great. And I God bless it. I so appreciate every chance I get to visit with my friends like that. But our relationships are forged out of fights. They're forged out of conflict. They're forged out of disappointment and frustration and anger. And, you're upset that you're not doing better. You're upset that you got beat by someone. You're frustrated where you are, or any of those things. And it seems so dark to say that. It seems so unnatural to say those are the relationships I have. But the key part of that is they're my friends, not just because we fight each other and we get frustrated and we get angry. They're my best friends because who we are when that happens, when one of us gets upset or frustrated or just down, the other people step up, that's when you know who you're friends with. I have one friend who's incredibly hard on himself, and we'll fight like crazy. We will train until we're both dying, and he will be so mad that something didn't go his way in the training session. And it's my relationship with him in that moment that matters. It's not just having beers. It's not just hanging out and talking about stuff. It's giving each other the opportunity to be exposed and raw and angry and fight. And being the people we can be after that fight. Being the people we can be for each other during the fight. But being ourselves. Because let's face it, if you're just playing with Legos and sinking them in a fish tank, you're not 100% being yourself. Unless you're an incredibly shallow person. Everybody has those raw moments where they're frustrated and angry. Everybody has hopes and aspirations. I'm with my students all the time. They break down all the time. They're frustrated. It gets raw. Because those are real relationships. Because those are real people. We so desperately want to avoid fighting in our lives. But you're going to have to realize at some point, fighting is what keeps us alive and keeps our relationships alive. And without it, we're just playing in a goldfish tank with some Legos. I'm Matt Todd, and this is the engine that drives me. Go out and crush it.